Welcome to the Daily Detox Podcast. I'm your man Dion J, and today we have back again good brother Tucker-Bey. Welcome back to the show, good brother.
Thanks for having me, man. Always a pleasure to be back, ready to discuss some things.
So what you got for us today, man? You got a video clip? I heard you
Yeah,
sent me a few messages or whatever.
got
And
something for I think would be interesting for us to kind of dialogue about.
all right, well let's get into it. All
You
right.
think a lot of women provide men peace in relationships?
No.
They don't know how to
I don't
because
think
they
so.
haven't done their own shadow work. They haven't learned themselves. So they don't know who they are. They're going into relationships to look for their purpose and place purpose on men instead of figuring out the purpose within for themselves. So you get into a relationship and now this is your end all or be all because if this don't work out, this is your happiness. And that's a problem. You should not be looking for your happiness in a relationship. You should figure out your happiness within yourself, love yourself, and be whole within yourself. And then maybe you are ready for a relationship.
Wow. So what's your reaction to that video, man? I mean, seems like they touched some serious points.
Well, it's refreshing actually just to begin to hear more women, black women, actually dig deep to really figure out that happiness begins with yourself. It doesn't begin with some guy who you might want to fill in the role of a father figure or things of that nature. So that's refreshing in itself. But she's absolutely correct. But it goes both ways, right? I think that a lot of times you have trauma that meets trauma, and then trauma decides that they want to collectively, format a relationship. And that's usually a recipe for disaster, right? It takes a lot of real heart to dig deep within inside of yourself and figure out what is actually wrong, what is actually bothering you. What are the things that make you uncomfortable, right? And figure those things out because if you do not, essentially all you're going to do is transfer those things to the next relationship, then the next relationship.
I mean, they're already gonna get transferred. I mean, most women have daddy issues anyway, so I mean, you can't get rid of that trait. The daddy issues trait is gonna be there forever. So the trauma lives, and it just goes dormant for a little bit, and
Hmm.
then it comes resurfaces back up when it is a trigger, right?
Right.
So
Well, the thing with that, you're actually correct, but um, if she's able to identify that she actually has a daddy issue, right?
I
Then
mean,
that
what woman you know is gonna identify they got a
Well, you
daddy
know
issue?
what? I tell you what, I don't know these young ladies here, but and this is an actual show itself. But if we had time to listen to the whole show that they were on, they actually mentioned that. You know what I mean? But even with men, we have daddy issues too because majority of our households where you're dealing with the black male, the black mother is the one raising him, right? So even we as young men or older men still have the daddy issue situation because who were our role models, right? So it actually goes both ways, okay? Right along with other things that we may have, like experienced in life. But one of the things that we still struggle with in our community happens to be seeking therapy. You know what
I
I mean?
think most men got mommy issues, though. I mean, think about all the bitch assness and all the sensitivity that's going on. Especially look at Kanye, right?
Hmm.
He's a prime example of someone of a guy that has mommy issues, right? He's so emotional. He's got to express his thoughts, even if he's wrong or right,
Hmm.
and he blames everything on everyone else, right? That's what women do.
Hmm.
That's mommy shit. Like his mom kept him away from his father all his life. He said in the documentary,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So he's never really had that male figure that was dominating, trumping. I mean, look at it. He named his school after his mom. He named it after his dad. He named it after his mom, Donda Academy, right?
Hmm.
So he's got mommy issues. Most dudes who've been raised by their mom got mommy issues. They want the coddling,
Hmm.
they want that level of attention.
Of course.
And so then when they split ways from mom,
Hmm.
now they out in this world and they're like, well, okay, how do I manage? Now I got my girlfriend. I need to bring her on.
Well, what happens is when you're dealing with both sides of the coin, each individual are looking for that support, that mommy support in their significant other, whether it be a man dealing with his girlfriend or wife, or a woman dealing with her boyfriend or husband, right? And at the end of the day, you have some people who are solid as it pertains to who they are. It burns them out because you're not there to be somebody's dad. You're not there to be somebody's mother. You're there to be their their mate or their soulmate, right? Or their partner. You see what I'm saying? So it's a lot of pressure for somebody to now come on board, try to formulate a relationship with you, and then have to now deal with all of the things that struck a strange chord with you coming up the pipeline of your development. You right? It's a lot of pressure, man. And I mean, even with myself, it takes a lot of heart to self-assess and to really dig deep into, well, what is really bothering me? What's at the root of it? All right. And because the only way you're going to really figure out, what's going on and then figure out which directions you should go in to heal yourself, you got to go into that dark area, that dark space. You have a lot of people, man, as I said before, who are professional blamers. They're professional finger pointers, right? They're professionals. If they could make money off of it, they'll be millionaires. You understand what I'm saying? But the fact of the matter is, at some point, you have to point the arrow at yourself. What is going on with me? What do I need to do to fix the things that are plaguing my spirit to the point when I do get into a relationship, here comes self-sabotage.
So what's 3 things that someone could do to help reduce the trauma that they bring in relationships?
Well, one of the things is to identify what the trauma is before the relationship. I would not recommend.
So you're saying therapy?
Well, therapy is one.
Okay.
Therapy is one. Identifying through thorough therapy what the issues are and coming up with a game plan to attack those issues. Nothing's wrong with it. We all have issues, right?
But most black people don't like therapy, right? We
True.
don't. We feel like that's white people activities. And
well, I don't know if we think that, but I know
you don't
that.
Think so?
Well, it's always been big in our community to hold the essence of secrets, right? And so therapy is kind of a taboo process because now you're revealing something that no one wants you to expound upon. Okay, so but we realize that we have to have an outlet, man. These things that are real in our lives, keeping it, inside your physical house and not expressing it, it just germinates into something very negative. And this is why a lot of our marriages fail, and amongst other things, right? This is why a lot of times when we try to raise our children, we take the taboo situation and then we do what? We apply it to how we raise our children. You see what I'm saying? So therapy is important. We have to break away from the phobia of therapy.
I think therapists are a little biased, man. I think that therapists tend to lead you on in discussion to get you to communicate, but I feel like there's always an agenda financially with the therapist to keep those sessions going, right? So they're only going to feed you but so much.
Of course, it's a
so
business.
They're going to cater to your ego to make it seem like everyone else is the problem. You're not. Piece by piece, right?
Depends on the therapist. You have some great ones out here. You have some who are very affordable, and then you have some who are actually free. A lot of us have people who are in our own circles who will speak straight words to you, right? Depending on what the situation is. And as a matter of fact, that's a true friend. Someone who they're partial towards you, but they're not partial towards your faults. All right. And so for example, if you're in a relationship and you've done something wrong, pick something, it's wrong. A real friend is going to jam you on that, okay? And work on helping to correct where you went wrong in that gray area. You see what I'm saying?
I mean, what do you think about a pastor of a church? You think he's actually a good therapist? I mean, a lot of people get therapy when they get married, and they have spiritual issues or personal issues, and they go to the pastor of a church. Do you feel like he could be a good therapist, or is he just going to cater to your ego and pretty much
it depends,
look at the financial gain as well?
It depends on the pastor. It depends on the size of the church because you have pastors who have mega churches these days. And so they rely on their associate pastors and ministers to help, fill those gaps. But I think you have quite a few out there who are pretty thorough and sincere about what they're trying to offer as it pertains to, getting you and I and others to see what we can do.
But look at the divorce rate, how divorce is so high, but everybody, most relationships or marriages, went to the pastor as a therapist to help mediate before they got married, right? So then why is the divorce rate so high?
Because actually most of us did not. When I was married, we didn't do that.
Well, it seems like everybody preaches that now.
Well, because they have to, because to your point, the divorce rate is high. And so what we're doing, a lot of us are skipping, even those of us who are in the church, those of us who are in the mosque, the mass jig, whatever you want to call it, right? Um, we are skipping over that process that they actually preach in different places of worship or philosophy or whatever it may be. We don't do those things. We take things upon ourselves. We go to the altar, right, without a plan. And this is the reason why, in many cases, we're not making it, right? So if I had to do it all over again, I'm definitely going to sit down, okay, and deal with some things that somebody can help bring out of my pores, bring out of her pores, things we're not even thinking about, whether it's financial, whether it's sexual, right? Whether it's childhood issues, whether it's them digging deep into asking her or asking me, how were you raised? What is your relationship like with your mom? What is your relationship like with your dad? Did you have one? There are a plethora of questions and things that
No, we get it. We
right,
get that, but
but we skip over that, and that's the problem,
I
right?
mean, everybody skips over because there's an emotional. Your emotions take over. You
Right,
feel like hey, that's someone else's situation. Our circle is tight. We might not
right.
land in that same situation.
Well, yeah, but many of us,
We're naive to the fact that it could
right,
happen to us,
but
right?
many of us, in for example, in a lot of relationships or marriages, many of us have anger management issues. So you have fully grown men and women who, when they decide that they want to cross that line and get into the world of marriage, what we end up facing a lot of times when we don't deal with things that are bothering us or things that have produced certain things that we're struggling with, right? One of those things that I'm guilty of it is anger management. Certain things that trigger certain things with me, and next thing you know, I'm a different person, right? I've never been physically abusive, but my mouth can be interesting. You understand? And the words that can come out of there. So in my middle age and middle passage now, and if I ever want to get into another relationship or marriage, something has to be done because this new person should not have to deal with that.
I don't. I,
You understand what I'm
when
saying?
people say anger management, I always feel like that's just like a, like a cliche term, right?
Might
Anger
be,
management.
but
Anger
it's
management is like
mm,
so kind of like
mm,
so catchy to say, right? But really, when people say anger management, they basically challenging their anger into something else. It could be like liquor, it could be
it
weed,
could, but
it could
let's
be
okay,
sex. So they're
right.
challenging their anger into somewhere
Well,
else.
what happens
Is
with a
that
lot of
is
us
that a form of management or is it not?
could be, but let's take all of those vices off the table. We're talking about sometimes where you're having a discussion. Someone is perturbed with something that you've done, that you actually done. They want to address it, right? The moment they address it, all of a sudden you go from 1 to 10 immediately, right? Because you don't have the skills or the capabilities of having a basic intellectual discussion about something you've done. For example, it could be you promised to go to the store and get some milk and some items that they gave you, your significant other gave you, right? You come home, nothing in your hand empty, right? And it could be a pattern. Let's deal with it. As men, sometimes we can be forgetful. It could be a pattern. Now, do we expect for our significant others not to address that? All right. Speaking for self, once those things are addressed, I didn't have the ability to say, wait a minute. First of all, addressing it is correct because I didn't do it. Right. These the insecurities that I carry, and many people in them speaking truth to something that you did, the ball that you dropped, the insecurity, right? And the inability to have enough heart to say, you know what, you're right. I need to work on that. What's opposite? We go from the person trying to address something that you did, and next thing you know, the cover up, the fig leaf process is now we're going to argue. You see what I'm saying? It's,
Okay.
yeah.
So with this clip, what's your final synopsis of this clip?
Final synopsis of that clip, man, is, you know, she's right in that a lot of women have to look deep inside themselves in terms of what is actually bothering them, right? Things that they need to put in place to secure themselves first. Building a relationship with themselves is more important than trying to build a relationship with a man and you're incomplete, right? Because all that's going to do is ultimately create a problem. And it goes both ways. You know, both parties have to really figure out who they are first. Reassessment is important. all right, before you step into the zone of relationship. Man, relationship is big business. It's a lot of work. It's not easy, but it can be a little smoother if you smoothen the rough edges out pertaining to yourself first. And then you can go ahead and walk forward in the direction you want to go in, if you indeed want to get married again and all that good stuff.
All right, there it is.
There it is, man. Always a
Mr.
pleasure.
Tucker-Bey, thanks for coming back, man.
Absolutely. Fanu. Beautiful.